Smile Roach.
Hey, Greg Jennings, if an oxymoron is a two-word paradox, I present to you the ultimate oxymoron, the word bittersweet. As in yesterday's Eagles-Rams game, as in the Eagles' win was so sweet, their quarterback loss was so bitter. Carson Wentz left the game in the third quarter after diving into the end zone for a touchdown that was ultimately called back. He is feared to be done for the season with a torn ACL. Greg, let's start with you. Are the Eagles good enough to make a Super Bowl run without their guy Carson Wentz, who very well was on his way towards being the league's MVP?
I definitely think they're good enough. I think they're good enough to still get it done. However, when you talk about what Carson Wentz brings to the table, Nick Foles stepping in, he can throw the ball. He can make plays in the pocket. The difference that we've seen Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, these types of quarterbacks elevate their level of play. It's when they can remove themselves from the pocket, their escapability and their ability to keep their eyes down the field and still make plays and be as accurate as most quarterbacks try to be when they're in the pocket. That's the one thing that's going to change for this Philadelphia Eagles team. Everything else stays the same. I like Nick Foles. I think when we look at the Minnesota Vikings and we look at Case Keenum, I think most people would take Nick Foles over Case Keenum with what he can do.
Yes.
I just don't. They definitely won't be the same team, but they have an opportunity to continue to build on their success. A huge win yesterday, not falling off once he got hurt and getting that win, getting them to 11. That was big for them yesterday.
Yeah, I think he's good enough to be able to make a Super Bowl run. They're going to either have the 1 or the 2 seed. So you're basically talking about 2 games. Nick Foles has experience not only as a starter, 2013, played in the wild card game with Philadelphia under Chip Kelly against
Pro Bowl that year.
Yep, and against the Saints. So he does have some experience. Didn't have a great running game in that game, so he played well enough. So he has been on that big stage. Case Keenum hadn't been on that stage. So if they stay 1 and 2 seeds or flip, I like Nick Foles and the Eagles more than I like Case Keenum. Now, as far as the other teams, any of those other quarterbacks down the list, that being Drew Brees, that being Cam, if you get to a shootout with one of those guys, you could lose those games. Aaron Rodgers, if they get in, you could lose those games. But are they good enough right now? That's the important question. Right now to make a Super Bowl run? And yes, and the reason why? Because they got 11 wins. And they're going to be the number 2 seed and get a bye and only have to win 1 game before they're in the championship game.
Man, I'm legitimately shocked that this is that you guys are saying this. I saw people yesterday after the game saying it. This guy was pacing to win the MVP. He was doing it by being marvelous on third down. The best third down passer in the league by a wide margin. #1 passer rating, #1 yards per pass. He's thrown 14 touchdowns on third down alone. He just set the Eagles franchise record for touchdowns in the season. If he's done for the year, we saw this happen last year to the Raiders. Their quarterback is having a great year.
The Eagles are a lot better team than the Raiders last year.
A different type of quarterback coming in.
No, I agree with you on that point. My point was a team that looked like they were pacing towards a bye, maybe the 1 seed. They lose their quarterback and they fall apart. And Nick Foles,
who was the backup last year?
For the Raiders? Was it E.J. Manuel? No, Connor Cook ended up playing, so maybe multiple guys got hurt.
Do we need to say anymore?
Well, hold on. Here's what I do want to say.
I mean, if you're going to make that comparison, we have to compare the quarterbacks who came in.
Right. So
and those quarterbacks are not Nick Foles.
Well, who is Nick Foles, though? Because Nick Foles...
He's a guy that has some starting experience. He has played well enough. More importantly, he's been in the system.
Oh, well, Nick Foles, hold on a second, though. Nick Foles, outside of... Because, I mean, as far as in the system, last year he wasn't, or he was in Kansas City, same system they're running here, Doug Peterson. But Nick Foles, since that 2013, that magical year, you mentioned Pro Bowl, better than Pro Bowl, 27 touchdowns, 2 picks. Seems impossible, but he did it. Since then, he has started 20 games in this league. And in those 20 games, he's been a bad quarterback. In those 20 games, he has been what most people expect a mediocre backup to be. If the last we had seen of him was 2013, then it'd be one thing.
So who are the Super Bowl contenders then? Wait. Who are the Super Bowl contenders in the NFC?
In the NFC?
Yes.
I think how about this? I would say any team that makes the playoffs that doesn't have an injured quarterback. How about that? How about the Saints? Absolutely.
So the number 1 and 2 seeds are out.
No,
No, they're out.
No, the Vikings are not out. Why would the Vikings be out?
They got an injured quarterback.
Hold on a second. The quarterback that the Vikings have been playing with all year.
But he's a backup, though.
But they've been playing with him all year, and he's playing better. And they have Teddy Waite.
They haven't been playing with him all year.
Okay, since week 1. Sam Bradford got injured in week 1. They tried to play him in week 2, and they pulled him out. So they've been playing with him essentially all year. So you have more confidence in Case Keenum than you do Nick Foles? Yes, absolutely.
But Nick, for 3 or 4 straight weeks, you did the same thing with Case Keenum. For this many years, the most he's ever strung together was, you said, you never strung together 3 games. There's no way he's going to do this again. There's no way. There's no way. But if Nick Foles, he's never going to be the Russell Wilson or the Carson Wentz or the Tom Brady or the Aaron Rodgers who, when a game goes off schedule, is going to be able to single-handedly win it for you. But what if that guy doesn't have to? What if the team around him, the system, the personnel are so
But that's not what I've seen. All right, so let me answer that.
All he has to do was do what Case Keenum did.
That's not what I've seen from Philly this year.
There's no NFL team, Jenna, that has a defense or a running game that will carry the quarterback. You have to make some throws. If you watched the game yesterday, what did Nick Foles do at the end of the game? He made those 2 throws on 3rd down. That part won't happen. The teams aren't dominant enough in one area just to allow a team to be one-sided. No, it's going to have to be eventually. You can't hide your quarterback with these teams that are left.
But can't you play him the way the Vikings played Case Keenum, which is you don't need to go out and do anything crazy to win, just don't lose it for us. And they've managed, their system has managed, which is what you've been saying all along.
It's hard to do that. It's easy to say, Jenna. It's hard to come up with a game plan that Minnesota's doing that you're trying to do the same thing.
Without question. And I think the Philadelphia Eagles, they're a team that's predicated on scoring points. Yeah. Their defense, as good as their defense isn't what the Minnesota Vikings have on defense. No. So the Vikings can stop you and stifle your offense. The Eagles can stop you. I don't know if they're stifling an offense. They have to score points. And Nick Foles can put up points.
All right, well, that's what we'll see. Because the reason I'm not ready to at all compare them to what the Vikings have done is what we've seen from the Eagles this year, they have top 5 in the league on most 3rd and longs that they've faced. The other teams in that category are the worst teams in football. They've thrived because their quarterback has been brilliant in those spots. Their quarterback, we were talking about him as either 1st or 2nd for the MVP.
Their wide receivers have played good. Their tight ends have played great. They got 3 running backs running the ball. So it's nice to look at Carson Wentz. Yes, he is very good on 3rd down. But this team has supported him that he could get that overall productivity. So for me, Nick wasn't that excited about the Eagles before the injury. So I knew what we were going to face today. You didn't think they were the best team before Wentz got hurt.
Correct. And so, yeah, absolutely. If you lose your quarterback, listen, I would be happy to be wrong. If Foles comes in and can play great, that'd be an amazing story. The league needs more good stories here. That'd be a great story. I just don't see it happening.
Greg, thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Appreciate you.
Coming up, does Dak Prescott deserve any credit for beating the